Hello everyone. In this section we're going to be covering the widgets library as part of Corona. The widget library is a really useful system to get UI buttons. They have a whole variety here of tabs, buttons, progress view, things that you can basically use to make your UI much stronger in your apps. So we're going to go ahead and look at a few of these examples. We're not going to be covering all of the widgets in the Corona library. So the first things first, I want you to go ahead and open your main file and the examples file provided in this section. And the first thing we're going to take a look at is the theme. So you can go ahead and just copy over from the examples. The first thing we want is the widgets.setTheme. What this does is it sets the theme of your widgets, the aesthetic look of the widgets. Now, right now we can't really see what it's doing because we don't have any widgets in the screen. So let's go ahead and copy over the button widget provided in the examples. And then we're going to try running that. And you should see you have a button here now that you can click on. And let's try changing this theme from theme_iOS to Android. You'll see now it's a different aesthetic theme as it was before. There's also iOS 7. So we'll go ahead and stick with iOS for now. And let's go ahead and take a look at this button code. So the way a widget works, the most basic example here, the button, is it is a set of code that creates an object that has touch listeners and various forms of the object to make it very easy to have a button and these other usable UI elements. So as we looked at before in our events and listeners section, this object has a button event, which is a touch listener, same as the ones that we went over previously. To create a new button, you need to give it a left, a top, a label, which is the text you see in the button, and then the event itself. So we can see here that we can actually change the label, and it'll give us different text on here. We could also move it around by changing the X and Y values, the left and top. And of course, we could change this event if we wanted it to be a different listener. So next up, we're going to take a look at the tabs widget. So go ahead and from this tab section down to the test tabs. Let's go ahead and place this in here. So this creates a set of tabs that you can swap through in your app. So these tabs are a very basic structure where only one is active at a time, and every time you press one, it will activate whatever listener you give per tab. So the functions for this code here, this is the set of tabs that we've created, and this is the actual widget being created. So we have a set of tabs where each one of these is one of these tabs, and then this is the actual code to create the widget where we give it a top, we give it its width, a height, and then we tell it what its buttons are. So we pass this information over. So we can see here we can actually change these very easily. So now we can change the text on this one. We can change the size of the text maybe on the second one. So you see now it's much larger text. So it's very easy to change these and set them up. We could also give them different listeners. So each button has a different listener. So if you wanted for the third tab, for instance, to do something different than if you press these two, you could have a different function here. We also don't need 3. We could have any number here. So let's go ahead and we could create a fourth one. So you'll see now with this fourth one, we'll have 4 buttons. Just make sure you separate each one with a comma. So you have now 4 tabs that we can swap through based on the list here. So that's the basics of tabs. This is very useful in apps and games to switch through menus. So if you have various menus or various selection menus for the user to go through, the tabs is a great way to swap between those. So next up, we're going to look at the progress view. So go ahead and grab it from the examples, this section. And the progress view is quite simply a bar to show you progress or a certain percentage of a value. So you'll see here we gave it a left, a top, and then its actual width. So we could change the width here. We wanted to make it wider. And then what this does is it sets what percentage it's actually at. So set progress sets its current location. So now you'll see it's at 25. You'll also see if we uncomment this is animated, if it's animated, it'll actually go up to that percentage instead of just appearing at that location. So you can also have it pop up as an animation. We can also change this multiple times. So it's going to override the 0.8 with the 0.6, but if we had, for instance, this activate when a button's pressed, so maybe these tab bars, we could have it so when a tab is pressed now, it changes the percentage. Oh, this is not created yet. Hold on a second. It should work. There we go, see? Alright, so that is the progress view. Now let's go ahead and take a look at switch buttons. So let's go ahead and select the rest of the code here and bring it into our main file. So the switch buttons are 3 different sets of buttons that have switched states, so they have on and off states. So unlike this button where it is up and then it's down, and you can tell when it's being pressed or not, these buttons have an up state and a down state. They have is on, is not on, is on, is not on. So the first one we're going to look at is radio buttons. So all 3 of these sets use the same listener. You'll see that they all are being given the same function, and they all print out the information of that button. So the first one, the radio button, it actually is a switch between multiple buttons, and the way to make it is you create multiple switches of the style radio, and you just need to make sure they're all in the same display group. So if all of these radio buttons are in the same display group, then it will only allow for one of them to be on at a time. So whichever one is on, it'll swap off the rest if another one is pressed. So right now we have 2 of these, but we could very easily create a third one. So if we just create another version of this, you'll see now we'll have 3. Now that's on top of each other, so we'll have to make it down a little further. So now we have 3 buttons, and only one can be on at a time. Next we're going to look at checkbox. So checkbox is very simple. You give a left top location, you tell it the style, and then you give it the press listener. You'll see here that it's activating this function, printing this line of code every time we press it on and off. And then the on and off switch is also very similar to this. The on and off switch, as we swap it on and off, it swaps its state, and it just needs a left, top, and the style of on-off. So that's some basic widgets. There are plenty more to take a look at. I would recommend taking a look at these at your own time. We will not be covering the majority of these in this section. Thank you for coming. See you next time.